And, let's see. All right, we are at the home of Lieutenant Colonel Walter Stein.
Walter S. Stein.
Walter S. Stein.
Or Shalom Stein, really.
No, Walter S. Stein.
Walter.
Okay. And his wife,
Charlotte H. Stein.
Charlotte H. Stein. And the other person that's present is my wife, Letitia Ruffin Cartwright, and myself, Carlton Cartwright. And we're representing the Children's Coalition Incorporated. Okay. And Colonel, what wars and branch of service did you serve in?
Was in the Second World War, in the Army,
Yes, sir.
and Vietnam, and Korea.
And what rank were you when you finally separated?
A Lieutenant Colonel.
Yes, sir. Were you drafted or were you enlisted? I mean, did you enlist or were you drafted?
Drafted
Okay. And where were you living at the time?
in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
40, don't need that. Baltimore, Maryland.
All right. Why did you, okay, so you were drafted.
Right.
Did you have, even though you were drafted, could you have chosen another branch?
No, prior to that, I was in what they called the military service of the, back in the Home Guard, I used to call it.
Okay.
And from the Home Guard, I went into the Army.
Okay. Do you recall your first days in service?
Well, first day before getting to the military, they fed us and they had paperwork, and that's about what I recall. Then they sent to Fort Meade.
What state was that in? What city? You remember?
That's in Maryland.
Maryland. Okay.
And the date on that is, let's see, on about I was in the Home Guard in 1937, but I went in 1941.
Okay. What was boot camp like? What was your training experience like?
Well, being from the north and going to the south, it's quite a difference. The ground is all, it must have been the cheapest ground that the government could purchase to put these Army installations on. But good training, and I enjoyed it very much.
Right. Okay. Do you remember your instructors at all?
Repeat?
Do you remember any of your instructors in boot camp?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
All right. Okay, so you feel like overall you managed to get through it and it was a good experience, boot camp?
Yes,
Okay,
it was a
that's
great experience.
Which wars did you serve in? You already told me, but just repeat. I'm sorry. Vietnam. You went. Did you serve in a European theater?
I served originally in Panama.
Okay.
And from Panama, I was recommended by my commanding officer to go to Officers Candidate School. So I went to OCS
Yes, sir.
in the United States. Then after that, we were assigned all kinds of military police units, and each unit, as they were needed, were picked up and sent to these different locations.
Okay.
And I was eventually sent to go to the Pacific.
Oh.
But when we got to Fairfield Suisun Air Base, which was the Air Transport Command,
Yes.
we were supposed to be flown from there to the Pacific. But being the MPs, the night before we got there, they had the prisoners in the lockup in the stockade
Right.
that escaped.
Oh,
So they needed to get them back and put more security on the stockade. And so they kept us at Fairfield Too Soon Air Base. We didn't get to the Pacific at that time.
just to go back for a second, do you remember where you went for officers, OCS? Where was that?
OCS was, what was it? Got it down here.
Okay.
Yeah, recommended.
Fort Custer.
Fort Custer,
You know what state that was?
Yeah,
uh,
Michigan.
Michigan, right?
Okay, fine. All right, let's get into the Pacific Theater. Where did you go exactly?
Oh,
In the Pacific.
in the Pacific, I went to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
You did go to the Pacific.
First landed in Japan,
Right.
and from Japan I went to a atomic energy school,
Right.
and after the course was over, they shipped me over to Korea.
Okay. What was it like? What was Japan like?
Well, when we landed in Japan, they put us in Japanese officers' quarters.
Yes, sir.
Well, they opened the door, and I went to go in, and I almost knocked my head off, because the doorways were about 6 foot, I'm 6'3"
Right.
at that time, and otherwise it was Japanese fashionable
Right.
Quarters.
Okay, so
And-
you almost lost your head when you got there.
Well, before I got to fight anybody.
Right. Yes. Okay. Okay. So you went from the training for the atomic energy
Yeah,
to Korea.
Korea.
All right.
And I was assigned to a military police unit
Mhm.
in Wonju, the
Okay.
town of Wonju in Korea.
Tell us about that.
Well, I was the only one at the assignment, and I got on they had a train that took me up, that went up, and they said, one of the Koreans came over to me and said, do not sit on a seat near a window. He says, if you want to, get up on the baggage rack, and you'll be safe to get to your assignment.
Right.
And so that's what I did. I didn't sit in the window. I got up on the baggage, laid out on the baggage, and was up there all during the time that I got to my assign in Wonju.
How long was the train ride?
I don't know, about a couple, 4 or 5 hours. It was a slow train.
It wasn't overnight though.
Huh?
It wasn't overnight.
No, it was, it stopped at every location. I don't know, it had to put water into the thing. It just didn't go like a American train.
I guess it was a steam engine. Okay. All right. So where did the train take you?
To the station, to the town of Wonju.
Okay. And
And our station was in Wonju,
okay.
our MP unit. From Wonju,
Mhm.
we had the security of the area, and we had the security of the troops up to the front line.
Okay.
We had a part of our troops that stayed at the front line pretty much the whole season.
Mhm.
And when we had to go up there, I traveled up there many times, there was an area that you shot over to, that the water was along the Japanese water. And it was cold on one side and would be hot on the other side, just a bit different going through this pass, like.
Right.
So it was a little unusual for a new experience. I'd never had experience of that. But we covered above 10th Corps was above us, and we covered the troops above 10th Corps.
Right.
So we had a very, very nice experience in that.
The 519th.
Huh?
The 519th.
The 519th MP Battalion.
Got it.
And the what does it say? I can't think of it right now.
So what was your specific job assignment? You were an MP or?
Well, it was an MP, but I was a battalion supply officer.
Okay.
So I had to travel from one unit to another unit to check on the supplies, see how they're getting along, if they have enough supplies, to see that that things were functioning, and it, for my job was to order whatever they lacked or whatever they didn't need,
Okay.
whatever they did need to order for them. And we stayed up on the front line one night and had a very bad experience of a soldier being told that he was going to go home the next day, and all the boys around him said, "Suppose you don't go," and he had a weapon that was loaded, put it to his head, and he killed himself. It was a bad experience at that time. He would have been living today if he didn't have that reaction, you know. It's kind of an emotional reaction.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Parmesan. He was at Parmesan.
Yeah, at the peace conference. I also was at Parmesan. We had troops. The way they set it up, they had in the beginning, they had a rope that they put on top of a tent. The tent was 3 tents.
Right.
The conference was held in the middle of the tent. The American troops were on one side of the tent, and the Koreans, North Korean,
Right.
and some Chinese. I don't know how they got in,
Right.
but they were on the other side of the troop. Whenever the heater in the peace conference was not warm enough or not cold enough or whatever it is, they stopped the talk. They called the MPs in. We had to turn the heat down or turn it up, and after the temperature was correct, then they went back to establish the conference.
Right.
And I met some very important people at that time, but I wasn't really stationed there. It was my troops that were stationed there.
Okay.
And they walked around this perimeter, which was 100 meters. 100 meters that it went around. That was the walk around. And as you walked around, you saw the North Koreans in foxholes all around there, sitting all around this perimeter. You never had their guns all around. I never knew when they were going to do whenever they had an emotion.
I guess that kept you on your toes, huh? Did you see any combat?
I saw combat at the conference. They would say that we are on hill number 322. The hills were contour of the hills had numbers, and it went higher and higher, and whatever part of the top of the mountain or the contour was the number of that hill. We would say we were on that hill. They said they were on this hill. That night, they would fight like hell to get that hill, whoever it wasn't on there,
Right.
to fight to get to the top of that hill.
Okay.
They had developed what they called reverse slope. In other words, normally you put a perimeter in front of what you're defending.
Right.
They put it on the other side. When you go up the hill, you don't get any fire. You get to the top and all hell breaks loose.
Right.
So you would see napalm and everything else used to fire, and we observed that, and not in that portion of it. I didn't physically get into the battle, but I observed all of the combat in that area.
Were there many casualties in your unit?
In my unit, we really didn't have, we didn't have many. The Marines were changed from the east side to the west side. We helped to change them from one side to the other.
Right.
Most of the things that we did in town
Mm-hmm.
to see that the soldiers were active the next day, not overreacting in the different various bars that were available.
Right.
And the supply would leave that town at nighttime and go up. And we made a oasis that about halfway up to their final place, we set up a place where we had food, and they could park the car, get food, and at least be sober on the trip up to the front lines.
Right. Oh, great. Yeah.
So that helped a lot in saving not only troops, but we saved a lot of equipment, trucks that went over the hill
Right.
from not getting to their assigned location.
Gotcha. Were you a prisoner of war?
No.
Good. Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences.
Well, so,
Uh-oh.
yeah, you see, got so many, I'm trying, what would be, I thought that was memorable to be at the peace conference.
Right.
I thought that to have been in a location where someone took their life instead of military combat
Engagement.
engagement. I thought that I think that being in charge of being in charge of ordering material, and we had a commanding officer that we got up at 5 in the morning, and we had to be at the mess hall to eat breakfast at 6.
Right.
And he would give us assignments for the day, what he proposed for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
One of those assignments that weren't specifically spelled out were that we were to load preparing for the winter. This was in the summer, that the place where rice grew, our camp was. And there was so much water that they used to prepare to grow their rice.
Yes.
Winter, rather the summer melted everything and made it watery. We filled it with rocks, and when winter came, it all was like a nice ice rink. And I know that I was fired at entering into my unit. The interpreter that I had also interpreted for a general, which I can't remember at the time, but he, at that time, the North Koreans were advancing, and they took the area, the Pacific area in Korea, and he was told by my interpreter to get out of there and to move south, and he did not want to move the troops, troops from the area. He was defending the area. Well, they captured him.
Oh, really?
And that was a bad experience for me. I had another troops that were coming up, and they were fighting. They were fighting in a town. They were about 50 miles from the town.
Right.
The commanding officer had them wait in this area instead of continuing on their march. And the unit had quite a few casualties. I think that if he would have come up there, he would have helped the unit quite a bit.
Right.
But he held them down for the next day to move forward.
Hold on 1 second. All right, so medals. Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Yeah, I got some citations. I'll show you.
Meritorious.
Okay, I'll put them on the video.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do it at the end. What did you get them for? What did you get the medals for?
It's the one from the Pentagon. The other, I don't know. The others were firing and nothing. I didn't get any medals for bravery, as far as to the extent of
The meritorious
meritorious
Service, meritorious service?
Yeah, and
from the Pentagon.
but as far as physical, I don't know. I really never went for it. In other words.
I got you. Higher rank, there's a question here for higher rank. Well, anyway, you were an officer, so the question is, were you ever involved in any battle planning?
Battle pains?
Planning.
Oh, no, not as an NP. The only planning that we were involved is the transfer of the Marines had to be transferred from the East Coast to the West Coast, and the preparation of this oasis. We had to arrange for food and equipment to be there, and we had to arrange for security, because once the guys would bring the truck in, they went in to eat, and the trucks were open. So we tried to, in planning for that. I was in many different things that I can't recall at this time.
Okay. That's okay. Did you sustain any injuries?
Hearing. I used to wear earplugs or hearing aids.
Okay.
From the sounds, different various military sound I'm trying to think of a time, well, there's I don't know, can I tell a kind of a little joke
That's
about
fine.
the artillery?
Yeah.
We always had an advance to locate where the artillery were to fire.
Right.
The advance party. So I participated in the advance party, and we would get up in a tree and watch, could see the enemy movement and call back to the commanding officer of the artillery. And they would fire, and then we'd call back, you missed it, you missed the target. And they would say, it looked good when it left here.
Okay. Glad it looked good sometime. Okay.
You can't get them all, you know.
So, were you under fire much at the front line?
Not, almost every day, you might say.
Okay.
We were right up in the area, and if it wasn't, I used to go up into Seoul, and from Seoul, we had a prisoner of war camp, and from Seoul, troops would come, Korean troops would come over, and we would stop them, because we identified them not as an American soldier. We'd stop them and ask for a ID card. Well, they would present an ID card, but if you read it, it was misspelled. So we don't misspell ID cards.
Right.
We picked them up and put them in the prisoner of war camp. Now, there's many of that. They infiltrated with if they had a message to get back to the prisoner of war camp, they would tell it to maybe 10 guys and let them come over, walking down the street as if they were ordinary people of the town.
Okay.
And you just picked them up. We would pick up these fellows, and I also know of an experience where I was instructed to pick up a certain man, which I will not secret, and take him to the airport, and he was going to be dropped into North Korea gathering information and so forth. There's all little things that you are in, and you know, it's been so many years, and I've never really discussed all of this.
I understand.
So, but that's some of the little things.
Okay. How did you stay in touch with your family? How did you stay in touch with your family?
Oh, correspondence. We didn't have telephones at that time.
Right.
Like they have cell phones now that you can talk.
Right.
But mostly it was mail. We looked forward for mail, and sent back as much as you could, as much as you can write.
Right.
The things are not just set up everything perfectly. It's a little odd under certain things.
Right.
We would be invited by different Korean people to their home for a meal. Got on the floor and ate. Kimchi was their big thing. It's
Right.
it's something that they boil with garlic, and when you eat it, it smells like
It ferments.
huh?
It ferments.
Ferments. It keeps fermenting. The longer it stays. The housing that we stayed in, were in houses, and the heating system, they were off the ground, but they had under the ground airways. So you started in the back of the house where they cooked the food, and then the heat went on the bottom of the house to the front of the house and went out an exhaust in the front. So when you slept pretty much on the floor. You know, I later on got a bed to sleep in, but flooring was a place to, and I scrounged a mattress to sleep on, and I slept on the floor. But that was the way they heated their house, or the house we were living in.
Right.
And they managed to cook in the back of the house and heated it through the front. They were odd. Like, for instance, they would, we say come here, we normally say like this. They say iriwa, and iriwa is come here, and they use the hand this way.
Right.
Come here, iriwa, iriwa.
Right. Okay. All right. How was the food? You were talking about kimchi.
Oh.
How was the rest of the food?
Food. Well, I'll tell you one story. It was pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty good food. But the mess officer had a technique of being able to get food from the commissary as he wanted it. Now, we had the major that sent me from Korea to Officers Candidate School became the Provost Marshal General, General Howard. And Howard was coming for lunch to inspect us.
Okay.
So I said to the mess sergeant, it would be nice if when we could get the steak for lunch, because the general would be there. It'd be nice to put it on plates. We had plates for him, and we had built a house for him to stay in.
Right.
We actually built a house, and whenever he turned the spigot on, we had a soldier up there pour water down the drain, so he got water.
Right.
He turned it on and he got the signal and the water. He thought, we had dinner, lunch rather.
Okay. Yeah.
And he ate the steak, and his saying was, "Don't you guys eat anything but steak?"
Right.
Because every place that he went, they had steak for him. that day, they kind of switched their menus
Right.
so that he would have it on that day.
So was there a lot of fish?
I don't think, no,
No?
I wouldn't say.
No?
It had the normal fish days, but none of. They do eat a lot of fish in Korea.
Yeah, I figured.
I know in China, the way they have boxcars on the railroad, and they're sealed so that they put ice and water in. They get fresh fish
Right.
from the and then put it in these cars and ship the cars up into areas where they don't fish, and so they eat fresh fish. Actually, the fish are in these trains, but they're like, the ones that we have here, but they're not sealed
Right.
to the point that water would get out of them. But so fish is very important in the Oriental people. But I know I ate fish at the place where I was invited to.
Right.
To come to, and but no, the food was very. We had of course, breakfast was the one that everybody called shit on the shingle.
SOS.
Yeah, SOS.
Gotcha.
That was
Corned beef hash.
Right.
when back in those days,
Yeah.
they didn't have like they have mess halls now.
Okay.
Now a soldier can go up to the mess hall and he wants a hamburger, he gets a hamburger.
Right.
If he wants chicken, he gets chicken. If he wants, they kind of give them anything that they.
So there's a real menu now, and then there wasn't.
Yeah, that wasn't at that time.
Did you have plenty of supplies overall?
Well, let me explain that to you. You fought for it. You had to fight for the supplies.
A little competition, huh?
Yeah, many times I went back to Busan and went to see the different ones. We used to get a I don't know whether this is permissible, but we got alcohol, spirits, at a kind of a quota. So much was considered a bottle, I think 2 bottles a month or something like that.
Right.
And I used to have to go back and I'd pick up our share
Right.
and to bring it up. Well, it was so difficult to get certain supplies, and the commanding officer says, I want some construction, some houses. So I go to the not the quartermaster, but the engineers, and I asked them that we need these buildings, we got to get these up. And he said, no, I can't give you, I don't have it to give to you. Very hard. On my trip down one day, I went to the place and I presented the what's the name with a bottle as a little gift.
Right.
And about a week later, 3 train loads of lumber came assigned to me. The engineer came over to me, says, how did you get the wood? You can't do this here. I said, here, take one. I gave him 1 and I kept 2.
Okay.
That's how you negotiate.
Right. You barter. Gotcha.
Everything is not just perfect.
I understand. Did you feel any pressure or stress?
At times, yes.
Okay.
Oh, sure, yes. Yeah, I had a buddy of mine that got a call that his wife, he'd been away from his wife, and his wife was having a baby, and he wasn't there, and he was very upset,
I bet.
and he asked me to go with him in the Jeep to an assignment, and he was very, very upset. And the story he told me as I went with him is that when he left, he had some in-law to look after his wife, and apparently he looked after his wife, and he went to the Red Cross, and the Red Cross finally, she left town, and they finally found her, and it was an accident or whatever it was, and he was upset all about this, and we did get to our assignment and get back. I later found out he went out one time and went over a hill, so these are little things that just happen and life goes on.
Right. How did people entertain themselves?
We had movies. They used to say that the film were very expensive, and one of the things, one of our jobs was to go into town, and they would be showing the film that was sent by Hollywood to us in the screen in the town of the movie.
Okay.
Well, we went in and took it back. Now, what they would do is they would steal these movies that were assigned to us.
Right.
And they said that if we don't return them, that you pay for the cost of making that movie.
Oh my God.
So it behooved the MPs to check to see if they were being shown in these theaters in town,
Yeah.
and to make sure that after our copy was shown, it was mailed back, and we got a ticket that says we shipped it back,
Right.
or to the next unit. In other words, it went from one unit to another unit. That was one thing. We had sometime, I remember it was like a geisha girl came to dance with their, what's the name? You know,
USO.
Oh, okay.
USO.
Right.
The Red Cross, I was unhappy with the Red Cross. When we put this oasis up, I went to the Red Cross and asked them for donuts,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, no, we were too far forward. We were too far forward, that they couldn't give us anything.
Oh, okay.
So we, as I say, the story as we managed was that whatever food could be scrounged, you know, with the term scrounging is not stealing, but getting,
Right.
getting things. And the different ones with the trucks that came in would drop off a box here and there.
Uh-huh.
You know, well, it's kind of a little friendly maneuver of, you had to survive. In other words,
Gotcha.
it's a,
Okay. Did you go on leave?
I don't remember going on I did, wait a minute, I did go back to Japan.
I think once, honey, when you called down.
Yeah, that's right. I went back to there, and I remember going to a bathhouse. And they had barrels, and you get into this barrel of water. It's all hot, and it was like a bathhouse,
Right.
kind of a bathhouse.
Right.
That's about the most I can remember experience there.
All right. Okay. So I know you have photographs and medals. We'll
Yeah.
document some of that.
Yeah.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yes, well, that was in 19,
Where were you?
I was in Korea.
Okay.
And,
Oh, you mean final ending?
Yeah, well, like your last days of service, you know? Yeah.
yeah, well, I did service later on in the Pentagon after I came out
That's
of
what it
Korea.
means.
Oh, okay, so in other words, yeah, exactly. All right, so from Korea, you were transferred to the Pentagon.
No, I was reassigned in the reserve,
Oh,
and then was assigned to the Pentagon because of, to organize the International Confederation of Reserve Officers.
Yeah, but that came later.
Later,
Yeah, see, when he left Korea, that was in 52.
mm-hmm.
He was in the reserves then. So in all that time, he became, all this, he was a provost marshal, he was an inspector general for First Army. It's written down there.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, that's manuscript.
Yeah.
So, is that the only copy that you have?
You can
yeah,
look
that's it. well,
You can give it to me and I can run you a copy and bring it back when I bring you your DVD.
oh, okay, okay,
All right, or I'll mail the whole thing back either way. If I can't come back, I'll put it in the mail.
okay.
All right, so we have a manuscript about, okay, so just again, you were, well, it's all listed there. You were provost marshal and what else? IG?
I inspected National Guard units
Mm-hmm.
for the First Army,
Okay,
and went from one city to another, wherever they assigned me. Went out, I flew out on Monday and came back on Friday,
right.
unless it was a unit that had to stay over for the weekend.
Okay. So where were you when you separated? Finally,
Oh, the final separation,
The Pentagon.
I was home.
Pentagon in DC.
Pentagon, yeah, from the Pentagon.
And what year was that?
With retired May 28th, 1979.
Gotcha. Do you recall the last days? Those, when the service ended? Where were you? You were at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
What did you do in the days and weeks afterwards? You retired?
No, went back to my hardware store.
Oh, okay.
I had
And where?
the store was on Caroline and Gay Street in Baltimore, Maryland.
Gotcha. You worked, did you go back to school? Did you use the GI Bill?
Oh yeah, on the GIB, I went to University of Baltimore,
Okay.
and I took all the courses, and I think, I don't know, what was one course in algebra that I needed to, in order to get my, I had all enough credits in taking other courses, but they didn't, because they wanted me to have the algebra course
Right.
in order to get the diploma.
Love that math.
You know,
So you wound up getting your degree.
I did,
Not physically, no.
huh? Not a physical degree. I got the points,
Okay.
but I don't have because I was supposed to go back to school for the algebra.
Okay.
Algebra, it was not
Mine either. Join the club. I think I'm gonna start a club. Anyway, did you make any close friendships while in the service?
Yes, I still have a Sergeant Murphy who calls me, and we correspond, and I call him and we talk about all the men in the units. Most of my men in my 800th MP company are pretty much gone. I think there's a few, just a very few left.
Right.
Most of them are all gone.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Oh yeah, I'm a member of Jewish War Veterans. I'm a member of MOAA. I went, huh? ROA. I'm a member.
Not union.
Okay, I'm also a member of the handicapped veterans. What is it?
Foreign wars.
Foreign Wars. Foreign Wars.
VFW?
VFW.
Yeah.
Base commander, two of them, in Maryland and here.
The biggest part is
Commander Ball.
they keep sending for money. Keep sending them. They need.
Past commander,
Huh? What?
past
I'm a
commander.
past commander of the Jewish War Veterans in Maryland and in Florida.
Okay. All right, there's several more questions,
Uh,
and these are really, well, they're somewhat philosophical. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
I love the military.
Okay.
I think that the military has given a good insight into life, life and death. How you need to learn everything you possibly can learn for your health, for your bearing, your position in life, to make something of a human being.
Right.
And I think that I don't like the killing and taking of the lives of people that I don't know. And I know that those things are that's harmful to the families of them. I do believe in negotiations. I believe that there are better ways than we need an army, but I don't believe we need an army that's destructive, constructive. I went back to school because President
Were we Eisenhower, Kennedy?
Kennedy
Okay.
said that the Army was not necessarily only for combat.
Okay.
It was for intelligence and for many of the other good, constructive, necessary. And I obeyed him and went back for more education because I feel that's necessary for everybody.
That's true.
For everybody. Education is the solution. Although education has gotten out of hand in the way it's priced now, and some control has to be made on education, I don't know where the problem is with the money, the need. I mean, I paid, I don't know, I paid like $50
Credit?
a credit.
Yeah.
Or and now they want $1,000 a credit.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, I think, let me see. Well, yeah, it's going up, I don't know how many hundreds or maybe 1,000%. But I just, yeah. When you were serving, I was probably, no, let's see. When I started school, it was really cheap. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Now it's $300-400 a credit.
Yeah.
And upwards. And upwards it is. But I think when I started at the State College, for instance, years ago, it was $35. Now it's like $100 a credit.
Now
That was 20 years ago.
now
So it's over that period, yeah.
you want him to learn what he's going to school for, or you want him to go to work to pay your tuition.
Right.
You know, it's take it both ends. I want to put in one. I commanded a black unit. It was at one time the mess hall.
Right.
You could go to any mess hall on camp, and
On base.
on base. Our cook was a wonderful cook. He took chicken wings and he chopped them in half, so when you picked it up, the meat came off, you pulled the bone out.
Right.
You didn't
Fight with it.
fight with the chicken wing. It was already cut pig. Well, more of the white people came to our mess hall because we had a better mess hall.
Had a better chef, huh?
Because the chef, he was wonderful.
Mhm.
He was wonderful. And there are little things like this that I just, you know, I experienced and had that were just wonderful. I also was in the military when Truman said that he would integrate the troops.
Right.
And my unit was all black. So I was ordered that half of my unit was to be transferred to another unit, and I was to get a white unit into my unit. Well, I had the first sergeant pick out who do you want to send out. So he went through the roster and he picked out all the 8 balls. And he sent them out. We got in all of the other guys' 8 balls.
So,
That's the way the ball bounces.
there you go. Right? Well, that's human nature, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, did you attend any reunions?
Oh, I did attend.
Fort Drum.
Huh?
Fort Drum.
Oh yeah, Fort Drum. I commanded
Is that New York?
New York, yeah,
Watertown.
Watertown,
New York.
Right.
And I commanded a unit there, and they wrote me a letter and asked me to come, that they were going to organize. Because the story about that was that I was at that time at Fort Dix, and I had been transferred from Governor's Island.
Right.
And I was assigned to this unit, which was an Army Reserve unit from Watertown, New York, assigned to Fort Dix.
Okay.
So my command was that of the men who were from Watertown, New York.
Right.
And they had all kinds of political influence.
Okay.
And wanted to go back to the Camp Drum. Well, the commanding officer, the battalion commander, he had his unit he wanted to send back to New York.
Right.
So he gave me a hard time. Now, the barracks that we lived in had coal. And as much as you cleaned the barracks, the floors are wooden, but they're splintered. You can scrub them clean. And different hair from the mop gets caught under a sprig of the flooring. And he would come down to inspect my club, and he would get the register ducts where the heat. He would take white glove and put his finger in the crevice, the
Register.
in the
Right,
register,
right.
and pull it out. You see, very bad, very
Right.
bad.
Yeah.
We finally got to go back to Watertown, New York, because these youngsters that were in the unit had sufficient people that if their families got them to go back to, and so I went to Watertown, New York, Camp Drum.
Right.
And that was another experience. We trained, we were MPs on the unit, but they trained tanks. So the ground in the area were very high and low. Tanks would go up and down, and it snowed, and you couldn't. Many times I couldn't get to my office. I had to take a shovel and shovel a path to get into the office.
Right.
The snow was, and they had plows there. That the car in the back that had two plows like this
Right.
to cover the whole street. Well, if a car came down the road and wanted to pass, they raised this plow and let them pass, and this went down to continue covering the snow. I think they invented the snow plows up there, because there's no end to snow.
Right.
But my wife came up to visit me.
I'm sure they've come up with some innovation for snow plows in the north.
Uh,
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Your
No,
wife
no.
came and visited you and what?
No, she came up and they wouldn't let her go beyond Syracuse.
Right.
So she had to go back to Baltimore, and when the snow went away, she then came up to visit me at the camp.
Yeah.
And we were put in a cottage. We lived in this cottage, and then we had shovel to get into the building, shovel to get out.
Right.
You had to plug your car in because the oil would freeze.
Right.
So you plugged it in, you had a stick that was in the oil.
The battery?
Kept it with liquid.
Yeah.
It was a charge, kind of a charger or something. And then you had a ball on the top of your aerial, so when you came out of a driveway, you could see a car. Otherwise, they couldn't see the car come out.
Right.
And we helped train the skis. We had a ski slope at the camp, and the Army sent Marines up at one time to train these men on these ski slopes.
Okay.
That's your 10th Mountain Unit that's in Iraq.
Gotcha. Oh, all right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
I don't know. Can you think of anything?
There's plenty you didn't tell.
It's always like that. It's always like that.
You can't.
Well, in the interim, when he got out of service after Korea, he came back to his hardware store.
Right.
He opened in Baltimore, and then remained in the Ready Reserves. And actually, he did more time than just a regular 2-week summer reservist.
Right.
He was Inspector General IG for about a year for First Army. That's from Virginia on through to New York. He was Provost Marshal in Indiantown Gap.
Yeah.
He was Provost Marshal at Fort Drum. He was I&E officer at Fort Drum. And so that all, and actually after 68 he went full time almost until he retired. So anyhow, but he put in his time.
Well, those were assignments because the war was going on at that time, and they needed people to take care of things here.
Right.
That they didn't have their own troops,
Yeah,
and
the
they
enemy's
didn't have
war.
regular army.
Right.
That's another story, regular army and reserve.
See, he was the only reserve officer, which he failed to tell you. When he was in Korea, that unit was a regular army unit. Walter was the only reserve officer there. He took a lot of flack from.
I built the course that we had to take in
the
Europe.
obstacle course.
I went to Europe with our team. We had we built,
CIOR, yeah.
we constructed a team from all units. That's
NATO
military, I mean,
From the
Army,
NATO
Navy,
countries.
Air Force, and we had a meeting one day of all the commanding officers,
Right.
what we're going to do, and these things are coming to me.
Right.
And the first thing one of the Air Force officers says, what are you going to call this, Army? And I said, no. it was called, I gave it a name for all the units. Not any, because we all were Navy, Air Force, and
Marines.
Coast Guard,
Yeah.
all were.
Yeah, all of the forces were there.
But it's amazing how people are single out things, concerned about
Their autonomy.
his one thing.
Right.
It was for everybody.
So what did you name it?
What did I have that? I got it on.
But it was the CIO war, all the NATO countries do this once a year.
That's the International Confederation of Reserve Officers.
Right.
In other words, reserve officers from all over the country who are in NATO.
Right. You mean the globe, the world.
Globe, yeah,
Yeah, and
the world.
in the world.
Yeah.
And they compete once a year in every one of the states that they in.
Countries.
We had our time, and that was what I was called back to be the head of that. I got all the different meetings together, the dinner,
Courses, the obstacle courses.
the obstacle courses. Had that built.
Right.
And that was another thing. The regular army had the equipment to build it.
Right.
And they came and said, we'll build it, because the reserves paid the regular army to build this obstacle course.
Okay.
You see? And so one day they charged me like a Saturday and Sunday, and I saw the trucks standing without doing any work. What are you charging?
You were still getting the bill.
The reserves are getting the bill
Yeah.
for you not doing any work
Right.
for 2 days. I better stop before they lock me up.
Okay, Colonel. Well, I'm gonna extend a great thanks for your time and allowing us to come to your home,
It's
Charlotte,
okay.
to collect this great interview.
Now, is it going to be edited? How is?
No, not really. Gotcha.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is my unit of the 800th MP company.
these are all his diplomas.
Right. What else you got?
Okay. And Provo
Provo Marshal.
Marshal.
Okay. Hold on.
Officers Candidates School.
Gotcha.
On the top.
We don't get it. I had a friend, she loved it. She was little. She was short. So, I got it.
And what are those for?
That's for meritorious service in the Korean War. One Korean, this was from the Republic of Korea, to the servicemen that served there. And the other one is for honor and efficiency and integrity, and the Meritorious Service Medal.
Okay. Got it. Where was that?
Panama Canal.
Okay.
Kind of horsing around.
Gotcha. Where was the one up above?
Above, let me see,
Right, yeah. The four guys.
poor guy.
The four guys.
Yeah, I don't think I'm in that picture.
Oh, okay.